The Kentucky Small Business Development Center is a statewide, nationally accredited program that provides no-cost, confidential business coaching and training services. Whether you're just getting started or are ready to expand, we have the tools, resources, and expertise to help you succeed. We're part of a national network, America's SBDC, with over 1,000 centers across the nation. To learn more about how the Kentucky SBDC can serve you, please visit KentuckySBDC.com or email us at info@KentuckySBDC.com. You can also reach us by calling 888-414-7232. Thank you for joining today's webinar. The chat feature is available for you to ask questions and interact with today's speaker. Please take a moment to introduce yourself and where you are watching from today.
Hi, welcome everybody. Welcome to another Wednesday webinar. I'm glad you're here today. I'm Dave Etkin. I'm the director here at the Louisville Center of the Kentucky Small Business Development Center Network. So happy Wednesday to you. As always, just to make sure that you can hear us and see us and everything's working well, just look to the bottom of your screen. You'll find the chat feature. If you don't see it, just move your cursor down to the bottom and the toolbar should pop up. So if you wouldn't mind, just say hello and tell us where in the universe you're joining us from, so we can. It's always really interesting for me, and I say this every week, that we get people that join from sometimes all over the world, and I just think it's really cool that people do that. So there's Alan from Kern's Kitchen just joined in. I always ran into Alan not too long ago, and if you haven't had a Derby pie, well, he's the guy responsible for all that. See Suzanne from Pikeville, Lexington. And Sarah from Panya Bands. Sarah, I haven't talked to you in a long time. Glad to see you today. Let's see, Keith at Thrive. Yeah. So great to see everybody. Thanks for joining us today. And as we go through the presentation today and we get through the content, just feel free to put in the chat any questions or comments you have. And, we'll just barge right into Amy. I think Amy will stop and answer your question or ask you for some information or some input as well. Marketing is always a big thing on everybody's minds. I know it's on mine. And I often personally make the mistake is that if I can just come up with a killer message and throw it out there, everything will be fine. But there's way more to it than that. And So I've asked my good friend, Amy Rudy from Impact Sales Systems, to come and talk about different things that you might be doing that would sabotage your sale with your customer. Getting the attention of your customer is one thing, but actually getting them to give you money and make a sale is another thing. So welcome, Amy. It's always great to see you.
Great. Thanks, David. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Ryan. Today's a big day for us as we start looking at how do we win more deals. But thanks for inviting me in, and I'm excited to be part of this again.
Yep. So why don't you go ahead and share your screen? Let's get started because I've got my pen out. I'm ready to make some notes here.
All right. Very good. And highly recommend that pen and paper. That back in the day we used to use a chisel or rock for you younger people. But again, my name's Amy Rudy. I'm with Impact Sales Systems, and I work on the behaviors behind selling. We actually contract to a result, typically to double sales production. So we get heavily involved in an organization. And the things I want to share with you today are some of the things I see that get in the way of people winning as many deals as they possibly could. And so we're going to cover a ton of space here. We're going to move pretty quickly. So feel free to either grab a timestamp or listen to this again. I know it's available in the library. You all do a great job at the SBDC of providing these types of resources. First disclaimer for anybody that doesn't know me is that nobody's ever accused me of being indirect. So it's quite possible that we're going to move across, maybe some little tender spots there. But anyway, so today we're going to talk about how to win more deals. The things I want to share with you in particular are those behaviors, right? 12 specific behaviors that I know will lower win rates. So here we go, I believe. There we go. All right, so quick agenda here. One is we're going to make sure that you're starting from a good fulcrum question, right? Knowing where you stand. Then we're going to dig into understanding what's not winnable. That will increase your win ratio very quickly by just eliminating the stuff we shouldn't be chasing. Prepare to win. That's an important part of the conversation. And then we're going to look at 12 behaviors that lower winning rates, and then 12 keys to winning more deals. So how do we offset those issues that we might be creating for ourselves? So if you've got any questions, as they said earlier, post them in the chat. If you have an aha, put it in the chat. It's a great way to reinforce that for yourself. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Question, take a moment, and we're not going to spend many here, but answer this question because it will be the fulcrum for the rest of our conversation. I could sell more and make more money if I could. Just fill it in. I could sell more and make more money if I could. Sometimes I'll hear get more at bats or get past gatekeepers, charge more. Get more people to say yes, win more proposals. If you're comfortable, put your answer in the chat. This is going to be our fulcrum question for the rest of the of things that hopefully keep you centered. All right, here's a statement. If it's closable, I will close it. It's a mindset. All right, it's not arrogance. If the deal is closable, I will close it. It means that I will do what's necessary to qualify a deal. If it's not qualified, I will disqualify it because it won't close. You got that? If I do my job to qualify it, that's me. And if it's closable, that's the prospect, then I will close or win this deal. And it takes a lot of pressure off of feeling like you actually have to close a deal. Okay. So knowing if a deal is closable is what will really take the pressure off. So let's take a look at this, right? What makes your deal closable? In other words, what qualifies a prospect from buying from you? Do they have the issues you solve? Is the issue they're having more of a headache, or is it actually costing them money or robbing them of some quality of life, right? Can and will they make a decision? Those are some pretty big clues to whether or not a deal is closable. In fact, it might even be easier to know what disqualifies the deal. So let's take a look at that list, okay? There's two sides to qualifying a deal. What's a good fit for you and what's a good fit for your prospect? Here's some things you might consider on the company side, because being efficient to quickly disqualify something means you got to know what's a good fit. So is the opportunity the best use of our talent and tools, or does it break the machine? I'm okay with strategic growth, but just don't break the machine. Don't jam something into the machine that it isn't meant to work on. The second one I would look at is whether or not this is qualified for you and your company. Is a service expectation. Is service what sets you apart? Or is that an area that we may struggle, meaning that we're better in the commoditized space or better on a price-based offering? There's no right or wrong. We just have to know what that is. Can we meet the requirements of the prospect when it comes to service? Third is based on your defined unique value proposition, UVP. Does this allow us to shine and charge appropriate fees in order to deliver it? Or are they really looking for something more commoditized than what we are offering? The fourth thing is specific around communication. What are the internal and external communications for our company going to be in order to meet these expectations? This is different than service. This is our ability to actually produce. In other words, how does our prospect need us to be able to communicate? Are we capable of doing that? Do we have, number 5 here, do we have the necessary budget established or the money to produce the work and carry that debt until the customer is able to pay us. I don't know if you've ever seen companies, all of a sudden they blow up into this wonderfully large, got a great big giant deal, and they put themselves right out of business. The last piece on whether this is a good fit for us as our company is, are we willing and able to make decisions about what we will accept and not accept? We don't go into this phase of growth with timidity. We got to go in and be sure that we're willing to accept what we're not going to accept, what's a good case and what's not a good case or deal. Now, the prospects. Do your prospects have measurable issues? That's a huge qualifier, right? Do they have measurable issues? Where do the problems you typically solve show up in the prospect's business, and how are they measured? Are they buried somewhere in their profit and loss statement, somewhere in their financials? Do they affect the production schedule? Do they affect their inventory? Do they affect their customers' relationship? Do they have measurable issues? That's a big qualifier, in my opinion. The second question that is going to help qualify them is, how long has the issue existed? Is it brand new? Has it been there for several years? The right fit for you, right? There's no right or wrong here. It's just knowing what the right fit is for you. Are they getting in front of a problem, tends to delay a decision? Or are they actually dealing with the issue today? Have they been dealing with it for so long that they've actually built it into their business or into their processes? Tough to root out a problem if it's the company's been built around it or on it. The reason I want you to inspect the duration of the problem that you solve when a prospect first comes to you is that you're likely to find that your best prospects have those similarities. So knowing what's a good fit. The third is, do they actually need your UVP, your unique value proposition? Is what makes us unique actually valuable or even important to our prospect? We got to know that. The fourth thing to consider of whether it's a good fit is, has this prospect demonstrated a willingness and provided open communication, or do you feel like you're chasing them down for answers? Are they holding back information or being guarded, right? And by the way, it is okay to ask them that, politely ask them if they're comfortable with you or if they feel like they're able to share everything that they could share with you. The fifth thing is, is there a budget set aside or money that they're willing to invest to solve their issue? Again, it's okay to ask. Because if they don't, I don't know that this is a good fit. The last piece on, is this thing actually winnable, is, are they willing and able to make decisions? Again, it's okay to ask. Sometimes it's whether the person you're talking to is able to decide. Other times it is a decision maker who's unwilling to make a decisive change. So in looking at and inspecting the cases you're going after, right? If these things are not aligned, then the deal is not winnable. Disqualify it. Take a serious look at these things and identify what your criteria is that would make a deal acceptable to go spend your money to go pursue. But we do need the answer to these questions, not assumptions about unasked questions. So ask these questions. It's okay to ask every single one of the ones that you don't already have the answer to. And in my opinion, every one of those are sitting on the right-hand side of your screen under the prospects. Only they have those answers. We got to ask and have the courage to ask those questions. All right. So toughness, it's a big part of win rates, right? Everything starts above the shoulders and between the ears, okay? Knowledge, if just kind of breathe this in for a second, knowledge without belief is a waste. You know stuff, don't believe in it, it's a waste of effort and energy. Belief without knowledge is just a harder path to take. So before we dig into those 12 specific items, take a breath on this and recognize that there is a difference between knowledge and belief. But if you know things, but you don't truly believe in part of it, then you're probably wasting a lot of energy. But again, these are your shoulders, your ears. This is about your toughness. So speaking of toughness, I've been using a reference, and I don't know if I've used it with you guys yet, but I've been using a reference about winning on the hill. And it's a reference to cycling. Climbers win on a hill. So if you think about a bicycle race, right, going uphill, we get that. Well, if you look in reference, when things are easy, when things are going downhill, it's hard to make up ground. It's hard to pass people. You just got to pick a good line, get fit in there properly, and just don't fall off the daggone bike. But everybody is moving pretty much at the same rate, moving very, very quickly, and only the timid or the scared are the ones that get overtaken. It's hard to even make up ground on the flat. Winning on the hill means gaining ground when everyone else is facing the same obstacle. Who wins on the hill, right? The people that are the best trained, the people that have the most conditioning, have the strongest mindset, the most determination, the most grit. And again, that's from everybody in your organization. But it could be that we're winning because we have better equipment, but it's probably because we're stronger or we're more committed. We can focus on the guy in front of us and take him and overtake him. That's how that works, right? Now, we may have to stand in the saddle and work extra hard, but we can put a lot of energy, a ton of energy into what might feel like shorter gains. But right now, make no doubt about it, we're all racing on a hill, and your commitment level is the biggest difference on how much ground you can actually gain during this time. The best time to make up market share, take up market share, that's for sure. All right, as a side note to that, many of your competitors will not survive the current environment. And they won't survive because they are either overly reliant on a few customers. They might be poorly led to begin with. They may have inefficiencies or have low tech adoption. So their costs are still too high for what they need to be able to produce. They could have been cash strapped before the change in the current economic environment. They might make bad decisions. They could even operate with a broken pricing model. I've seen all of these things. And this is where if you're prepared to race and ride harder than everybody else, that your competition is actually falling behind. In other words, this current environment has just sped up the process of them putting themselves out of business. But now is the time for you to decide how much of that ground you want to take over. All right. Okay. Another important piece is don't just prepare to win. You have to prepare to be the winner, because the winner has work to do. Remember that when you win, right, revenue affects all areas of your business. So the confidence to be able to handle the work, preparing for the volume, because it's likely to affect raw materials, machine capacity, labor. It could affect even some of the relationships you have with your suppliers, right? Costs are going to go up and down. It could affect the amount of training and tooling you might need to provide your folks, and so forth. So take a serious commitment check and see, not only are you chasing down business, but are you actually prepared to be the winner? So here we go. All right. On your piece of paper, right, for your eyes only, jot down the name of a deal, a good deal, a decent deal you went after, abbreviate it however you want. Write down the name of a deal that you felt you invested in and lost, and why. So name of a deal that you lost and why. Just take a minute to answer that. It's amazing how quickly, when I'm in a room, a live room, how quickly people write something. It's always on the tip of their head, right? So the name of a deal you recently lost, or a deal you felt like you invested in and lost, and why. And then I'm going to play the great Karnak, and I'm sure that one of the few people that even knows who that was. But anyway, these are typically the 4 answers that I will hear some version of. Okay, I will hear that there was either no budget. Well, I'm trying to figure out, so how do we get that far into a deal without knowing that there was not a budget set aside? Or I'm going to hear that they lost on price, which means, again, we're going to talk a lot about this. But if you're solving a problem that for an organization, there is likely a measurable cost or loss. And I have never seen a situation, a winnable deal that was lost on price if the cost of the issue was 2, 3, and 10x higher than that. It just means we may not be getting into that part of the conversation. Every once in a while, I'll hear, don't know. I don't know why we lost. Well, what that tells me is that there was no path back to the decision maker, or maybe even never had the decision maker in front of them. The last one that I hear very often is we got beat on the deliverable. Okay, so did we truly know what they needed? Did we propose the right thing? Or did our prospect know what they truly needed? In other words, is it possible they went off without, you had a better option, but they didn't understand that? The question is, could we or should we have disqualified these folks sooner? Because every single one of these deals that we chase and lose, particularly to one of these 4 reasons, those are all solvable, and they just cost us money to go chase. All right, so here's the 12. The 12 gap building behaviors that lead to lower win rates. Okay, so as I go through these, you might kind of circle the numbers that mean something to you. And I'm looking at this from a behavioral standpoint. Each of the 12 things I'm about to share with you are things that we can control. Okay, I believe that I can control my own behaviors. I can't control anybody else's. My behaviors do control my results. Therefore, I can control my results. So look at this as a behavioral based, these gaps we might be putting in front of ourselves. First gap building behavior is to have no defined prospecting plan. Not knowing where we're going to go or who we're going to go after. Secondly, is dealing with extended sales cycles, dropping a lot of breadcrumbs, chasing things down, too long to get to yes and no. Either one of them costs us more money. The third is being in a situation with failures to get in front of true decision makers, people who may represent themselves as a decision maker or part of that, but that piece of it is a big gap. The fourth behavior is missing or ignoring the real reasons prospects buy. And I'm going to dig into this one pretty heavily. Number 5, back to that toughness thing, not addressing our own fears or beliefs. The 6th thing I would call as an issue there is features and benefits type selling. I'm going to dig into this one as well. But if we're selling features and benefits, just plan on losing more, winning less. All right, number 7, giving up control of the sales process. Number 8 is competing on price. Again, we should not be competing on price if we're not in a commoditized sale, and most of us on this call I know are not. The 9th item is the inability to quantify the prospect's problem. The math behind the cost and losses associated with the issue your prospect is dealing with. And sometimes we have to help them discover that math with us. We have to help facilitate that part of their understanding. Number 10 is not uncovering the real budget, either not asking for it or getting some, who knows where it came from, number that is a target price that they're looking for, but not the actual budget. We're going to dig into that. The 11th is what I would call going on fishing trips, which are great if you enjoy fishing, but I can't make a living doing that. So, but going on fishing trips, meaning that you're just hoping for something and not necessarily have an actual plan for it. The 12th one is relying on or blindly participating in the RFP process. There are, obviously very, very large deals often will require the RFP process, but normally in front of that RFP request for proposal, there is a question and answer session or the opportunity to have a conversation. Just once the RFP is released, that window closes. Now, there's a lot of smaller businesses that only use the RFP process because they don't know a better way to buy. And as salespeople, it is our behaviors, our expectation to have a conversation with them to help them understand that it may make more sense for them to actually have a sales interview instead of a blind request for proposal. So let's dig into these things. Now, as the owners of our companies or owners of our own business as a salesperson, if you're paid on commission, as owners, if we accept these behaviors, then we got to accept the results. So let's take a look at how we would fix these things, okay? So if you noted any of the first 12, these don't mirror exactly, but they do attach themselves to the whole 12. The first is about that prospecting plan. Know the difference between your primary and your secondary targets. What is a primary target for you? What do they look like? What do they smell like? Where do they eat breakfast? What's a secondary target? Why do those people buy from us? It's likely different that a primary target may have different business issues you solve than a secondary target might have. Even if you're selling into consumers or to personal services, there's primary and secondary targets. It could be due to size, it could be due to their reasons for buying, it could be their price point. Also establish an income goal for new business, not just take what you can get, but if you're going to build out a prospecting plan, what amount of your volume needs to come from brand new business? Compute and understand your closing ratios, right? What percentage of the time a lead qualifies for an appointment, or that an appointment actually turns into a quote, or that a quote will actually turn into a deal. And so understanding what those ratios mean that you're tracking it. The best way to look at what those gauges or those gates in your own sales process are is to look at your pipeline and where do you measure progress and know what those conversion ratios are. Identify what you can control, the average size of a deal, again, know those closure ratios, and what qualifies a suspect or a prospect. And then lastly, and I'll show you some examples here, but what are the events and activities that are going to generate the number of leads you need? Take a look at this. Pretty easy spreadsheet. If somebody needs it, let me know in the chat and I'll be happy to send some of these things your way. But if you just look at the left-hand side there, we won't spend a ton of time on it, but a super basic look is that if this person needs $200,000 of new business, could be $2 million worth of new business, right? But the average deal is worth $5,000. Basic math says that this person needs 40 deals. And a lot of sales management stops right there and says, go find me 40 deals. But if they really took a look at how often are they at the closing table, do they win? They got a proposal in hand. How often do they walk away with a signed deal? They're saying 60% of the time they will close a proposed deal. Well, that means this person needs to be at the closing table 67 times next year to win 40 deals, to win their $200,000. The next thing is, all right, so now how often does the proposal get written? Well, most people want pricing, so that ratio tends to be a little bit higher. But in this example, this person gets to the closing table or writes up a proposal 70% of the time when they've started pursuing a case. So that means in order for them to get to the closing table 67 times, they have to open 95 new cases, open 95 first appointments, if you will, in the next year. That's almost 2 a week. Now, how many people does this person have to talk to before they can set a good, solid, qualified appointment? This person believes that 5. 1 in 5 people they talk to because of their network or however their website is bringing them opportunities, but 1 in 5 people will set an appointment with them. Guess how many leads they need? 476. So this isn't about going to get 40 deals. It's about going to find 476 new opportunities to start a conversation with so you can set 95 appointments. Now, when I talk about a prospecting plan, it looks more like this. Don't freak out with the numbers. It is just a spreadsheet. But if you focus in every single event or activity that's going to generate leads should have its own plan. And so if you look down here, it talks about the number of calls to make. There's a percentage on the appointments that's going to boom, boom, boom. And it will tell me the value of every single networking or lead generating opportunity I focus on. What's a good use of my time? Don't forget to look at who can open doors for you. Those could be maybe some strategic partners. It could be large conferences you attend. It could be your website. It could be, gosh, existing customers that frankly made a lot more money off of you than you made off of them, that love you and would love to be able to introduce you to other people they think would benefit from a conversation. But every event or activity should get its own column here. Now, what you don't see is all the way out to the right-hand side of this spreadsheet. And that is to say, when I'm building a prospecting plan with someone, I'm normally looking at 2 to 2.5x of whatever they need in terms of either potential revenue or number of leads they believe they need. Okay, because I don't know for sure that this plan is exactly right until I've gone out and done it. So I would rather you over plan with a universe of opportunities as opposed to a 1-for-1, because if any of them fall short, you're in real trouble. Okay, so here's number 2. All right, we're doing all right. Here's number 2. And that is back to what's between our ears, right? This is the key to what causes an extended sales cycle. That's what I mentioned earlier, okay? It is important to look at and have a sales process. That's the technique side of what we do, okay? It's measurable, it provides navigation and to an efficient sales interview and certainly decision. Now, realize that the behavior behind those techniques are what's crucial. How we ask questions, the behavior behind building that prospecting plan we talked about. The attitude at the top is the hardest to teach or coach because it lives above your shoulders and between your ears, okay? I'll tell you a quick story. My youngest used to be a wrestler when he was really small. And so when we would look and when Wyatt was learning how to wrestle, there was a technique for a double leg takedown. You charge in on a kid, you pick him up, you drive them into the ground, crawl up on them and squeeze them until they don't move anymore. And it's just not a mommy sport, but it is what it is. Anyway, so Wyatt had the technique taught by brilliant coaches. But the thing was that if Wyatt didn't have the right behaviors, if he didn't lift the kid up by the thighs and instead grabbed him by the calves, the kid would sprawl on him and Wyatt's face would be in the mat and he'd come up breathing with 2 white plugs up his nose for the rest of the match. There's lots of little bitty things around the behaviors behind the technique, even though he knew the technique. The real issue for Wyatt was what would happen if Wyatt got on that mat and didn't think he was strong enough to pick the kid up? That's attitude, right? He was beat before he ever even got started. So it's important to realize that everything we know or believe or work on or chase after, right, as salespeople, there's 3 sides to it. There's the technique of how to do it. It feels very logical. The behaviors of how to do it and the attitude of it. In fact, as salespeople, there's probably, I wouldn't put salesperson in the middle of this triangle. It's too big. Right? There's about 40 different things that go in the middle of that: prospecting, technique, behavior, attitude about it, qualifying, disqualifying, budget discovery, gaining access to a decision maker, gaining commitments from people, presenting your solution, closing. Every single aspect, like I said, about 40 of them within your own sales efforts can go in the middle of this triangle. Take a serious look because it is a massive gap building behavior if you don't have it under control. All right, number 3, getting to the decision maker. Failure to get in front of a decision maker, that was number 3 on that list of 12. I ran a session on this. David, I looked up the dates. It was June 8th, I believe, of this year on gaining access to decision makers. I believe it's in the archive. You have access to it. Take a listen to it. There's some specific techniques around how to take care of this.
Yeah, I'm going to type in the webpage here in the chat. So make sure you click on that and you can see all the webinars that Amy's done for us and all the other webinars too.
Cool, thanks. All right, awesome. So that there's a lot more detail in that webinar than this one, but at least understand there's some key points to it here. But is your message actually even intended and designed for a decision maker? Or is your message, which we're going to get into, designed for anybody that will listen? Or very often we're going to find that messaging is often more for the internal part of our organization than it might even be for a prospect. Does the person you're talking to own the problem, own the budget, or have to actually deal with it every day? That's about owning the impact. Quantification. We talked a moment ago about understanding the cost and losses associated with a problem. That means something to a decision maker. Non-decision makers may not have visibility into it, but decision makers do. So make sure you understand that. Establish a decision-making process up front. In the very first conversation, I highly encourage you to ask someone, so what all will go into your decision? Who else is typically involved when you're making a decision that may affect your fill in the blank? Ask the who's and the how's and the what, when, where, and why do they even make a decision that way, which could go back to that RFP conversation. But get those questions answered before you give anything else away. A little bit further into that, understanding, what are the roles of people that are involved in the decision? Is it an engineer on one side? Is it the president? Is it somebody in procurement? Is it a manager at some level? It could be an end of the day, a user has a veto card, okay? And what are those folks most concerned about? It can change depending on their level within the organization and their responsibilities. The true decision maker, are they aware of the issue or have they been shielded from it? I can't tell you how often I see that people get surprised that something they've been pursuing for a couple of years got vetoed at the last minute because the person that made that final veto was unaware of the magnitude of the issue, okay? But first of all, we have to behave like the decision makers we are, because we know we should all be in front of decision makers. That's not new news to us, right? Do you know who decision makers want to meet with? Other decision makers, that's who, right? They normally don't want to meet with people that are there to sell them something. So decision makers can answer questions without hesitation. They can negotiate. They can ask tough questions, and they need answers. They usually have at least a departmental or project budget, possibly the entire company's. So here's whether you're an owner or a salesperson on this webinar today, please prepare your salespeople or yourself to perform and be able to make decisions around qualifying and disqualifying, around understanding the impact to your fee structure, the impact to margin in terms of understanding how to be a decision maker when you're sitting across the table from a decision maker. Understand how to talk to a decision maker. What is that person's real reason for buying from us? Learn how P&L works. If you don't know how a profit and loss statement works, learn it. And then talk to your prospects like the decision maker you are, because you are a decision maker. You decide whether a prospect is qualified. You decide whether to start the very expensive proposal building engine, and you decide how to achieve your sales forecast. You're a decision maker. Walk in that room like you are one and have an open discussion with another decision maker. All right, number 4 of how we solve these things is that it does start with a message. You just can't look like and smell like the last person they trusted, which obviously has fallen apart. Otherwise, they wouldn't be talking to you to begin with, right? So people will automatically try to compartmentalize you or categorize you. Oh, so you're just like, don't let them put you in that box. But more times than not, I think we're opening the box for them. But we have to snap their head around in order to get them to actually listen to what we're saying. We have to focus on the impact, their impact. People don't change because of their problems. They change because of the impact of their problems. Okay? Think about that for a moment. They don't change because of their problems. They change because of the impact of their problems. That's what we have to dig into, and it starts with our message. So often I see little to no preparation to answer that question. So what do you do for a living? And it comes off as something way too light or missing way too many components, right? I'll see sales calls with prospects start without any type of commercial or message. What we do is, it doesn't start with the conversation of the problems that people are typically coming to us with. It starts more with features and benefits. So without preparing a message or commercial, most sales efforts will miss or ignore the real reasons prospects buy. And that was that key issue on the front side. So by the way, the secret to the message is the reasons people come to me are the issues we solve, not our solution. We're going to dig into that more in a moment. Okay, this is important. What do we believe? Back to that, not dealing with our own fears and beliefs. We mentioned that a minute ago, but failure to consider those things, our own fears and beliefs, is often missed and a tremendous cause of falling short in sales. So please answer these questions, okay? What do I believe about my business? Am I best in class? Am I among the best? Are we a startup? Which in the word startup is really matters mostly to funders and family. It doesn't really, it's not important to your prospects. In fact, it might actually scare them. So caution on that language. Are we innovative? We have brilliant people. We are committed to our clients. What do I believe about my business? Now, every once in a while, you're going to hear some negativity in there. I believe my business is struggling. I believe my business is in trouble. Watch it, okay? Second question, what do I believe about my market? We can outperform our competitors. There's a great demand, or is there great scarcity for what we do? The scarcity of need, even. We have an excellent reputation, or in some cases, we are rebuilding our reputation one client at a time. There's some of us have to turn those things around, but it's okay because you're doing it one at a time. The next piece is, what is my belief around my prospects? Do they need what we offer? Are we being, are they being underserved by our competition? Are they stretched in their jobs and they actually need my help? They aren't available in the same ways they used to be. Just watch the language of what you believe. And if there's something very negative in here, nobody will take my call. If that is what you truly believe, I think you're going to have a heck of a time picking up that phone. And so watch for the negativity here and see if there isn't something that has to be worked on. That's going to be in that attitude part of that triangle, okay? If our belief in any of these areas is weak, unconfident, or the perfect hiding place, it has to be addressed. Now, what's interesting to me is that in the past 2 years, the answer to these questions has changed for a lot of people. So that means that you got to review this regularly. So is it a belief or knowledge, right? What's the difference? The belief, in my opinion, tends to be something unproven, something I just trust in. Knowledge is something that's proven. But there's very few things I only have to believe in, okay? Most of the things in my life, I can go out and prove to myself. So if you see the answers to these questions and take a look, is it what you believe or is it what you truly know? So again, failure to recognize how these things are affecting our attitude and behavior, it'll clobber you. Best sales effort in the world will go down behind somebody's brain. All right, so number 6, features and benefits. Features and benefit selling. Okay, so think through this. There's never been a feature nor benefit ever built that wasn't there to fix a problem. It wouldn't be considered a feature or a benefit if it wasn't solving something. So focusing on selling the features and the benefits is the issue. Focusing on the problems those features and benefits solve is the key to winning more business. Okay? So leading with features and benefits, it's going to circumvent the discussion and the understanding of the problem. It's going to throw you into pricing, throw you into a proposal or a presentation or a demo way before maybe even your prospects fully understand their problem. Certainly before you fully understand their problem and the related costs and impacts to their business. In fact, we've actually jumped the tracks and we're no longer facilitating their decisions. We're just, bullying through with features and benefits. It is about them. We've all heard that. It is about them. It's our job to help them discover why and what they need to change. So let the interview be the demo of what working with you looks like. I don't have to give away a lot of things, but when I ask great questions, I show genuine commitment to helping them have a full understanding of what they need to fix in their own business. That is a demo that they can engage in, okay? Remember, features and benefits are about us. Issues and related costs are about them. Number 7, establishing some rules. We talked about giving up control of the sales process. Well, let's put some rules in there, right? Here's a piece of spaghetti. You can't get upset with someone who does something you didn't tell them they couldn't do. Got it? You can't be upset with someone who does something that you didn't tell them they couldn't do. So when a prospect does something you don't like, right, relegates us to somewhere lower in the command structure, asks for a demo or asks for discounts, right? Inspect whether where we lost control in that conversation. Why do they think it's time to ask for a demo? My guess is we're no longer talking about their business or we didn't go down that pathway. If there's no meeting agenda, if there's no permission to ask tough questions, you'll see that in that middle part, right? If we're not asking who's involved in making the decision that affects fill in the blank, affects their profitability, affects their inventory levels, affects their delivery schedule, right? If there is no agenda for those things, that's likely what was missed. Okay, so every meeting has to have an agenda. And besides the particulars of, time, date, location, digging into these areas. Next steps, always, every time there should be a next step at the end of each meeting. And if you have to hand over control to the next step, meaning that they have to talk internally or they're going to do some spec work or they're going to respond or get 2 or 3 other quotes or whatever, right? If you have to hand over control of the next step, schedule the next 2. Schedule the step of what they're going to take care of and then go ahead and get on the calendar for when they believe they might be able to get that piece done. Don't lose total control of the process. And don't forget, you can always ask, and if I get your voicemail, what do you want me to do? The answer is never call me when you get a minute. We as salespeople, that doesn't exist for us ever because they won't. All right, number 8, price is not the problem. We did a whole session on this. David put that link out in the chat. But on April 27th, I believe, we had a session around stop competing on price. Okay, at the beginning of today, we took a brief look at your UVP, unique value proposition. I'm betting we are the lowest price was not it for anyone listening to this. Competing on price means there is no unique value to what we're offering. So it means that we've actually given up control of our sales process and that we are no longer facilitating the prospect's decision to help them meaningfully explore the issues and the related costs. That will take us out of that as an issue. But if there's a real issue to be solved that's affecting their company's operation or their ability to generate revenue, then there are identifiable, measurable costs. The sales interview or the sales call should uncover and explore the issues enough to include a discussion about those costs and losses. So if your conversations aren't getting there, you're probably more likely in competing on price than you may know. Yep. All right. Very good. Number 9, right? We talked about the inability to quantify the prospect's problem. Well, here's how you solve it. You keep your inquiring mind, right? Don't lose your mind on this one, but drill down on their issue. So why is that an issue? How long's it been an issue, right? Where do those issues show up in their business? It'd be great if you already know, but you still got to ask the question and see if they are aware. How long have they been budgeting that for an issue? Do we get that anytime an organization has had an issue that's been there for more than a year, they've actually been budgeting for it? It's just gotten buried somewhere in payroll or buried somewhere in some other kind of cost or a lowered sales production. But business owners will only spend impact dollars. An impact dollar is one that can actually have a return on its investment, meaning if your $20,000 solution is solving a $200,000 problem, that's an impact dollar. They'll spend those, okay? Again, people don't change because of their problem. They change because the impact of their problem. Keep drilling until you fully understand that. Be inquisitive. Why is the issue there? How long has it been there? What happens if it continues? Okay, number 10, close the candy store. Quit giving stuff away. Don't provide solutions during your interview. You're still asking them questions to make sure you put the right solution together. If you start going down features and benefits or solutions mode, very often we're providing relief, or at least mental relief, to their problem. They haven't committed to anything, but somehow their urgency might actually go down when we start solving it for them. And by the way, if you can fix it right now in my first conversation, it surely can't cost very much, right? I mean, you've already got the answer. I shouldn't have to pay that much. Just watch how these things might actually get in our way. We do it very often to validate for them. Don't forget they have to validate for us. There were 2 columns at the beginning of this presentation of what makes a good deal for you and what makes a good fit or a good deal for them. It truly is possible that your prospect does not fully understand the issue. It's possible they may not know how to bring it forward in their organization. So if we get into starting to give things away, they may not know what to do with that information. All right. Number 11, don't budge. That doesn't mean don't negotiate, but get to the real reason of why and whether they will change, okay? Don't budge on needing to have a conversation before you schedule a meeting with people. There are no fishing trips, right? I'm better in person. It's a very expensive way to operate. Quantify the issue. Get to those impact dollars. Don't budge before you get that. Commit to asking questions. Don't budge on that. Address their fears of sharing information with you. Do not give up on knowing that that's part of the conversation that has to be held. You know, remembering that sometimes some will, some won't, I beg your pardon, some will, some won't. So what next is a mental help for me that says that sometimes people will buy from me because I'm the right fit. Sometimes they won't buy because I'm not the right fit. So what? I'm not emotionally attached to this. I don't need this piece of business. I certainly don't need a bad piece of business. So what? Next. Some will, some won't. So what? Move on. Got it? All right. Might mean that our attitudes kind of a little bit too emotional about trying to get a deal. But have a plan and stick to the plan. Learn and adjust, but don't abandon the plan. Okay? Now, in your first conversation, one of the things, right, to solve for is, are they deciding in your conversation, are they deciding whether to change or how to change? So sometimes we'll go down the pathway of a sales interview and we're telling them how we would do it, and they haven't even committed to do something different yet. They may not fully understand their problem, that they do in fact need to do something. They haven't committed to that. So get in your head or in your language, is this conversation about deciding whether to do something differently, or have you already decided that, Ms. Jones, and we're actually talking about how to do it differently? 2 totally different approaches to a conversation. One's already had a decision made. Okay, here's your 11.1, because I only have 12. So David, this is 11.1, okay? But that is eliminating the think it over, okay? That'll clobber you faster than anything. But think it over truly means no, unless there is a time frame around it, or we can identify what those things are that need to be thought over and worked through. So it's part of the conversation, but establish those rules up front. What are you going to do if there are some things to think about? And I'm telling you, put a time frame on it and identify them, and you still have a case. If you can't do that, it really is a no, and it's okay. It just means that it's over, and that means that you're going to take your ball and go somewhere else. But you can't lose something you don't have. So don't put that kind of pressure on yourself. All right, number 12 is basically wash, rinse, and repeat, okay? So there's some areas that you have, part of shortening, winning more deals and getting rid of these gap issues is to have a process. Debrief and reset at the end of every interview. Look at what you did well, what you didn't do. Prospect, qualify, set rules, inquire, that's the co-questioning. Inquire some more after that. But quantify and get to the impact of an issue. Understand who the decision makers are and how the budget will work, and then close it. Some form of your sales process is buried in there, okay? Do the behaviors. So one of your homework pieces here that I would encourage you to take time on is to write down the process you follow, or the one you should follow, but inspect it. Does it work? What might be adjusted to win more deals? If you need help, we're here for you. This is what we do. But you might already have a sales process. Take a look at it. Is it still working for you? Have you curved off some of the edges? Are people leaving out steps? All right, back to your question of the day. I could sell more and make more money if I could. And tell me if the answer has changed. I'd love to see if you have confidence to put that in the chat. Okay. All right, if there are any questions, David, I can't believe it, brother. I'm 2 minutes early, but I'm here for questions if anybody's got questions.
Yep. So, just put your question in the chat there or a comment. And I'll ask you a quick question here, Amy, but back in the, a few slides back, you were talking about features and benefits. Mm-hmm. And that features and benefits really are an indication of the problem. You don't want to sell to that, but you really want to identify the problem. So what's a good technique to really quantify and crystallize the problem so that you can even show what's your ROI to your prospect? Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. I think it's a great question. If you know the features and benefits, that's what we're trained when we first come on board in a company, mm-hmm. right?
Yep, right.
And look at what does that fix? Okay, so let's suppose that a feature and benefit for my company is a 2-day turnaround on your request. What is that fixing? It's fixing a 3, 4, and 5-day turnaround. And then understand how a 3, 4, and 5-day turnaround might be affecting that company. Do they have to carry more inventory? Do they have to do more rush orders as a result? Do they have to have more money tied up doing things they don't want to spend their money on? So if there's a feature or benefit, just flip it over, look at what it is, and then explore where is that problem in their business? Where is it probably showing up in the way they operate? How much money does it cost to support that problem? Or, affect their customer? Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Victoria just asked a question. She says, my thought process changed from the earlier question. I wrote to get people to understand what I'm selling. In truth, I need to find out what problems I'm solving. Perfect.
Goal. Perfect.
Let's see. Sarah says, thank you for asking the feature benefit question, Dave. With copywriting background, I had that one too.
Yeah. And with copywriting, right, the reason they might need a great copywriter is that today their message is falling short. And if their message is falling short, it's either affecting their ability to recruit talent for an internal hire or to attract new customers, mm-hmm. or even supplier relationships. So, why is that so daggone important? That's excellent.
So Sarah, if you are a copywriter, and I guess you are, and you want to put your email address in the chat so that maybe me or some of us could contact you, that'd be great too.
Yeah,
if you're willing to do that. Yeah, awesome. Let's see. Yep. So Amy, back to the problems. Have you ever started with that? I mean, looking at a problem and then building a sales process after you identify the problem first?
So I think that's a good question. As far as the sales process for a prospect, not the sales process I coach on, because that doesn't change, but it does modify to whoever my client is. But as far as, understanding how they're going to make a decision, what are the issues they're facing and how are they coping with those? It might change how I interview. It could change if I'm talking to engineers before I talk to the financial people. It's going to change the interview. But it's because I'm talking about them and their roles. If I'm focused on features and benefits and what I do, it's amazing. That interview does not change no matter who is sitting in front of me. But if I'm really focused on helping them, it's a very different conversation depending on their role and responsibility and even visibility.
Right. So I know you're throwing a lot at us, and I've taken a ton of notes here, but what, if you were just to kind of distill everything down and tell somebody to do one thing today, what would you tell them?
Inspect yourself. Look at your entire process and be open to what you might see and see if there aren't some things you might need to change. And so, grab those, define your area. The reason there's so much, David, is because any one of those things can wreck us. Right? Any one of them. And many of us might have 2 or 3. Very few of us are going to have all 12. And so that one thing is take the time to inspect whether what you're doing today is actually working.
Awesome. Okay. I think that's right at the top of the hour. Yep. So, Amy, this has been spectacular. I really learned a lot today. I really thank you for everything you do for us and for the community. So thank you for coming on.
Glad to do it and glad to be involved. And I love watching businesses flourish. You have got my contact information. Reach out to me. My cell phone number is the 812 number. I'll help anybody. So no commitment there, just a conversation.
Yes. I mean, Amy is a great resource. I mean, I really recommend that you guys reach out to her, and she's a great person as well. And it's also fun to hang out with. So.
All right.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. Thank you, Amy. And we will see you guys next week on another Wednesday webinar.
Very good. Good luck, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining today's webinar. At the Kentucky SBDC, we know small businesses are the heart of our economy. That's why our goal is to help business owners start, grow, and succeed in Kentucky. Find out more about how our no-cost business coaching, training, and resources can help your business. Visit us at KentuckySBDC.com.